Welcome to our EFT Level 1 training class, and I will tell all of you that although this is a Friday evening, this is one of the best Friday evenings you could spend, because once you learn how to do EFT, it's something that you can do at home, you can do it at work, you can do it in your car, and those of you that have used it already just a little bit, you must already know that it really does release pressure and stress and anxiety, and it is a fabulous tool. I learned it about, mid-90s, I guess, and at that time, I just felt like I had found kind of like the fountain of youth almost. It was so extraordinary, and I knew that something inside of me had changed. And I've used it, I would say, on average, at least every other day since then. You know, almost every day. But there's some days you kind of forget, and then you go, oh, I should tap that out, you know? So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and it's really that. It's anytime you have an emotional response that you don't like, and emotional responses turn into physical responses. You know, if you're under a period of prolonged stress or discomfort or anger or trauma, if you've been traumatized maybe from a car accident, well, all that trauma sits in your body like a vault, and we collect it there. So you hold all that emotional pain in that vault that's sort of in the interior of yourself, and if it stays there and doesn't get processed, it begins to kind of wreak havoc on your body. After using EFT for a few years now and seeing its effects, and I'll really speak highly of it. I know it sounds kind of miraculous, but it is miraculous. And it's simple. And I believe that miraculous things are very simple. They're very divine. So you can always tell something that's really, really great because it's not complex. It's just straight up, easy to use, easy to do. So when you hold all those emotional feelings in this vault that we have, and you don't do anything with them, they end up causing some problems, and that's where the body begins to start to turn against itself. It's really signaling you. It's signaling you that there's a problem. You know, you could have a pain in your knee and not have any idea that it's from an emotional pain that you had some time ago. And you'll find out as you do basic EFT and then go on to learn advanced EFT, that what we learn to do very effectively is determine what is the cause or the root of a particular pain or discomfort. And once you go back to that cause or root and you find it there and you use the EFT techniques, you release it right where it was caused. So as an example, you know, let's say that you were in a car accident in 1998. And ever since then, you've just noticed you've had back pain. And you might think, well, that was from my accident. And the doctors say, that was from your accident, right? So now you've got this authority figure telling you this back pain is from your accident. You might always have it. You know, be glad if it gets to be less and less. But, you know, a lot of the medical diagnoses will tell you that it's not going to look very good, that you're kind of stuck with this. And maybe, you know, with medication, you might be able to minimize those effects. But what you don't know is that the sheer trauma of the accident is sitting in your back. And I've seen it over and over again that when we go back to the time of the accident, just briefly, you know, some people are a little apprehensive about that because they think that if you have to go back, do you have to re-experience the trauma? And you don't. You just want to get a hold of it. You know, if I was going to hand that glass of water over here, I would need to just get a hold of it so I could pass it, right? I'm not going to stop and drink it, analyze it, sit with it a while. I'm just going to get enough of it so that I can effectively have an impact on that glass, right? And that's really what we're doing with the emotion. We just want to check in with it, and we want to get just a sense of it so that we can let it go. Because you can't really let go of what you're not aware of. And sometimes you have no idea that that trauma has been sitting in there all that time. Just a few weeks back, I worked with this young kid. I love working with EFT with children. Well, he wasn't a child, but you know, a senior in high school, very, very powerful athlete. And he was finding, and just to keep him anonymous, it's in a game that we'll just keep anonymous, but he was finding that he could no longer play, and he was their star player. And it came to a point where he was experiencing sciatica. Some of you have heard of that, where it's this nerve that runs down your back and then sometimes right down your leg and hip. And here this young kid was experiencing the symptoms of sciatica. So they had tried everything medically to help him out because he's the star athlete. He's ready to go off to these colleges, and he's being scouted for all that. All of a sudden, he's being carried off the the field in a stretcher. And so they didn't know what to do. They went to, first all the medical places, and then they went to an acupuncturist, and they did find a little bit of relief because you start moving that energy around, that blocked energy, and that can really be helpful. But he still had it, still couldn't play, and he was pretty devastated by the whole thing. So they brought this young man in, and I just said, hey, I can't guarantee anything. We can't ever guarantee that something will go away, but I do have a technique that is proven to be very powerful, and we will know in one session, whether it is helpful for him or not. And you know what? If it's not, it's my treat. So you just bring him on in, and what do you have to lose but to try it? So what we found in working with this young man is that, a couple things had happened for him. One was that he had been in a car accident when he had just gotten his license, and he had hit someone. And so that was still weighing on his heart, right? Everything was fine, but it really, it's traumatizing when you've just got your license and you're already in an accident. So that was one thing. And the other thing was being carried off the field in a stretcher in front of his teammates, and that was a bad feeling for him as well, especially one of the star players. And he couldn't explain why he was in pain. It wasn't like he got, a big slide, a slide tackle or anything like that. So, so there's a couple of things that were really weighing heavy on his heart. And also, you might combine that with a third thing that, as he's going on to college, there's all the stress and trying to perform and be ready and be scouted and get those scholarships. So there's these, maybe three big things and maybe lots of little things. But really what we're looking for are the big things. With EFT, I think of it like your experience is kind of like this tabletop over here. And the tabletop is the discomfort. So in other words, for this young man, the tabletop was his discomfort of pain running right down his hip and his legs, right? So that's the experience right up here. The table legs that are holding this in place are different aspects of his pain. And one being the accident, two being the stretcher, three being maybe those college stress things that were coming on. So those are all different, very different aspects that are holding that pain in place. Does that make sense? So what we look for in EFT is, what are those aspects? What are those table legs that are holding this thing in place? And when you find those and you wiggle those a little bit with the EFT technique, you find the tabletop comes down. Generally, it can come down slightly or it can come down completely. If you're very persistent with how you do your work, and I will teach you how to be very persistent, I can say, and I've used this probably with, I would guess, 4,000 people at this point, and mostly one-on-one, a few groups like this, but a lot of individuals and a few groups. And out of, I would say, that many people, there's only been probably less than 5 that didn't get to a 0 on their pain or their discomfort or their sadness or their grief, even physical body pain. And those people actually chose to keep the number they had because letting it go was scarier than keeping it, because they were used to the pain, but they weren't sure what would happen if they let the pain go. And in the early days, I didn't know about that fear, and it didn't occur to me that we could tap that out too, the fear of the pain going away. See, that's another leg of the table, right? So we learn to find out what all these little legs of the table are, and we can literally bring that tabletop down. So this young man, as he came in, we went right after those 3 events, and I will say his sciatica left completely. He was able to play next game. He's played every game since. He's playing beautifully. I watched him play, very powerful. So, and then there's other